guys, we are Growing Up Without Borders, and today's video is our experience crossing the Atacama Desert from Chile into Bolivia.
It started from when we were in Puerto Montt. We took a bus up to Santiago, which is their capital. We walked around a little bit. It was nice. You can see it was really nice. And then after that, we took a flight up to the north called...
To Calama.
To Calama, yeah.
And then from Calama, we stayed in this kind of like, it was a rundown hotel, and it was what it was. It was a place to sleep for the night. So we slept there for the night. And then do you want to explain the mix-up that happened?
Okay, so we were, like, my dad was talking to, like, my dad knows a little bit of Spanish. And so he was talking to this, like, taxi guy saying, the bus is at 7, right? And then the bus, or the taxi driver was like, okay, you're saying the bus is at 7. Okay, I can take you there. So my dad thought, oh, okay, the bus is at 7. So then the next day we all get up thinking that we were going to take this bus at 7. We get there.
Which would have took us around the desert, so not going through the desert. So our original plan wasn't to actually cross the desert. So we get there early, yeah?
Yeah, we get there early so we can make the 7 o'clock bus. But then there was like, I was like, where's the bus? I was like, I thought you said the bus was at 7. No.
There is no bus.
I think so.
So the bus left at 6. So we were like, oh, well, that was crazy. So we all went back and had to stay one extra night. And then we thought, well, let's go discover the area. So we went to this little area called San Pedro, which is a little village within like the desert village. So we went there, walked around a little bit, had a coffee, and then something bad happened. And what's crazy is when we were in Puerto Montt, I was so upset with Tyler because he put one of our debit cards, like so our Interact card, in the bank machine and pulled out some cash, but forgot to take the card back. And I don't know how that happened, but the same thing happened to me in San Pedro. So I'm not sure if it was like I was a bit nervous because there's people around, or if the machines there do something where they give you the cash and the receipt and you just mentally think that you already got your card. I don't know what happened, but it happened to me. So it was literally like days after it happened to Tyler, and then it happened to me. And so I was like, oh my gosh, so now we have like no debit cards and only like a credit card. So we had to keep transferring from then on to our credit card and then using the one credit card for the whole trip. So that was a little bit crazy and funny now that we look back at it. A lot of the stories that we have seem like wacky and crazy as we're going through them, and then when we look back we get to laugh at it. So that at least is good. So from there we learned about the area a little bit, and there was this whole drive called the Moon, I don't know if it was like the Moon
Valley?
The Moon Valley. And so we decided to rent a car and take a tour of the Moon Valley. And it was really cool.
We saw a sand tornado, we call it. Well, don't know the real name. But it spins like a tornado, and it's just sand spinning up in circles.
Yeah, and we were outside at one point, so then we ran into the car because at one point it started coming towards us. And it was big. So the Atacama Desert is humongous. And the moon kind of valley was really pretty. Did it feel like you were on the moon, Ashalik?
Yeah.
Yeah, it looked like the moon, felt like the moon. And from there we were able to experience like just a beautiful sunset, right? We walked out, but it was like really windy, and which meant there was a lot of sand blowing all the time. But still, nonetheless, it was just beautiful. So back up to the bus section. So the reason why from the bus stop we couldn't take the bus was because the next one wasn't for like more than 3 days, I believe. So it was like we didn't want to be stuck there for that long. So we decided to switch plans. And when we went to San Pedro, we kind of scouted out our options. And one of the options was going to be to go with a bunch of different people that take you across by Jeep. So most people who cross the Atacama Desert, they usually go and they stop at different camp little areas and they enjoy it and what have you. We decided just to take a Jeep straight through, thinking, okay, no big deal, we could do this. And we did. However, it was a really long journey. And so it took us a good 7 hours of non-stop going in this Jeep. And Sorry.
I was going to just say, funny story is that since it was quite hot, I was going to turn on the AC, but instead of AC coming out, a whole bunch of dust, I was like, ah!
Yeah, literally dust was coming in from the vents everywhere. We were like, turn it off, turn it off, turn it off. So if we back up just to that moment when we found out that the bus didn't go for another few days, we decided, okay, we'll take another night at the hotel and scout out everything. And so after the Moon Valley and discovering San Pedro, we found that if we got up early, we could take a bus. So we took a bus and it goes up. We go up actually quite high. And it's already kind of looking deserty. So I'm thinking this is like the desert, good roads and everything. Then we got to this point, I don't know if you guys remember, where we met up with like all these Jeeps. And then we're like, okay, so now we get off, and then we take the Jeeps. And do you remember where the luggage went?
On the roof.
Yeah. So we were all like, wow, our luggage is all going on the roof of these Jeeps. So it went up and then we all got in. And then the journey began across the desert. And it was like these sand roads, and I have no idea. These guys are like, they know the desert like the back of their hand, because they were going like to all these different, just dirt roads that didn't have any signs anywhere, and they knew to go right or left. And then it wasn't like you go right or left for like, 10 minutes. It's like you go right or left 3 hours this way, and then you go left this way, and then, all through the desert. And at some points we saw other Jeeps going by. We saw really one funny one where it had people on top of it riding on the Jeep. That would have been a cool way to cross the desert. And then what else? So then we arrived.
It would have been too hot if you were on top of the roof.
It would have been hot and very dusty. No, first we arrived at the border crossing. So the border crossing into Bolivia from Chile is in the middle of the desert. And so we arrived and it was literally like this building, and these girls did an amazing job at convincing the officer to let Tyler in. And that's a whole other story, because do you remember Daddy, he got his passport.
A temporary one?
He had a temporary one from Canada, and the reason why he had a temporary one is because Brazil required a visa. And for their visas, one of the conditions was it had to not expire within 6 months. So to get a visa for Brazil was a whole other process. He had to provide bank statements, proof of income, like all these different things, and it's a reciprocity kind of thing that they do with Canada, so they just make it kind of a little bit hard. So he got a temporary passport, which meant there were fewer pages in his passport, and so one whole page was the visa for Brazil. And when we had gotten to this border, crossing into Bolivia, there was no more area for stamps. So we were there, and the guy, I remember he was kind of like, you can't, like there's nowhere to stamp. He was giving him a hard time basically. And do you guys remember what you guys were like kind of standing there all so pretty going like, please let him in? And he was giving us a real hard time. The guy is like, he's like looking at every page, and he's like, I have nowhere to stamp, right? So then he did find a little tiny corner. He stamped it, and that was okay. We got through. And here's what's funny is that Tyler, his kind of passport is like kind of his keepsake, right? It's all his like kind of like his memory book or his scrapbook or whatever you want to call it. And we only had we still had countries to go through, and I was like, how are we going to do this? And I knew he was going to get like super upset with me if I like peeled off his visa for Brazil, but that was the only option. So when he wasn't looking, I like peeled it off ever so gently so I didn't like break the page, because it was like sealed on. And it gave us one whole page, and we had clear sailing, and yes, he did get upset, but it was what it was, so that was kind of funny too. So after how many hours? Many hours in this Jeep, right?
We all stopped in the middle of the desert, like a couple more Jeeps with us, and then they get out of their car, open up their trunks, and they're wrapping out picnic baskets and blankets and water and all this stuff, and they had this big picnic, and they were cooking food and stuff.
It was really nice. So they prepared everything for us, didn't they? So that was like almost like a surprise. I didn't realize that they had this whole thing in the trunk of food. So we stayed there. There were no toilets, so the girls had to use the bush, right?
Yes.
And then we continued on and arrived right where the
But-
salt flats are.
Also, what's cool about the desert is that you see lots of llamas. That was also cool.
Yeah, we did see a lot of, that was the only animal we saw crossing, right? Was
Yeah,
llamas.
it was still llama.
Yeah, it was still cool. Some of the cool facts about the Atacama Desert is, do you remember?
It never rained, barely. In some spots, it never rained at all.
It's the driest desert in the world. So yeah, it hardly ever rains, and it's massive. So we found out the size. It is how big? Do you remember?
No.
Nope.
1,000 square foot?
Square meters. So 1,000 square meters. So it's like, that's why it took us 7 hours just to get across it, right? So we were like perfect driving. Our kids rarely get car sick when we're going places, but this time, at the very end, we had a bit of an accident, right? Angelique?
Yeah.
She got sick. Like literally, we were just pulling into the like our stop area where we were going to connect, because what we were planning to do and what we ended up doing is we arrived, and I forget even where it was, and we had such amazing experiences with buses in Brazil and Argentina and Uruguay that it was like, why not take an overnight bus? It's going to be comfortable seats, it's going to be great, and then we'll get from that area, I forget the name of the town, outside of the desert to La Paz. So it was a long journey, because like you got to realize we've been traveling from Puerto Montt all the way to the north, then across the desert, and then to do an overnight bus. So we arrived there and she got sick, and it was all over us, and it was like really gross, and there was no bathrooms to go get washed up in, and it was just like, it was like a mom's nightmare, and we experienced that. From there, you guys, you got to make sure you subscribe, because the next video that we're going to share is going to be about our journey in this crazy bus ride to La Paz, and where we stayed in Bolivia, and our experience in Bolivia. Because it was funny. I mean, it was kind of crazy, but it kind of continued on from this whole crossing of the desert, because we didn't really get a break. And then we did this overnight bus, which was just a nightmare, to say the least. And we got to squeeze in the salt flats right before we got on the bus. We quickly went and wanted to experience, because you see some of the pictures that people have of these salt flats, and they're just phenomenal. It looks like, it just looks like a piece of glass or a pool or something, and it's all just salt, and you get that reflection, right? So we wanted to see that before we moved on. So there you have it. We probably should have stayed a few days just to recoup and everything, but we were on a mission, and we had something already booked, and we were on a time frame, and our short journey was already starting to expand, and so we just had to keep on going. So make sure you subscribe, give us a big thumbs up, hit the notification bell so you'll be notified on the next video, and thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.